Join me in the audio garden to cultivate our collective wisdom, nurture creativity, and spread love. My name is Martha Senator. Welcome to Listen and Be Heard. Welcome to my garden indeed. My name is Martha Senator, and my co-host is Tony Robles. And this is part 2 of Writers Reading Their Work, a retrospective of Season 1, where I've taken out the interviews and just kept the writers actually reading from the books that we talked about. So coming up, a little conversation with Tony, between me and Tony, and then we're going to hear from Oliver de la Paz and Myles, Karen Luke Jackson, David Cameron, Tabitha, Scott Kikawa, who else? More. Nancy Sloan, Betty Ann Quirino, Darren Todd, Eric Nelson, Christian Lozada, Christopher Sims, Edwin Torres, Fiely Matias, and Suzy Sureck. So please, stick around to listen. We appreciate being heard. How are you, Tony?
Oh, I'm doing well. The memoir is interesting because you can. You're looking back, and then you're also looking forward. It's kind of like, you're, the different types of exposition. You have the exposition of secrets, exposition of, what was it? 3 types of exposition. The exposition.
Okay.
There's something called high exposition, the exposition of secrets, and the exposition of speculation.
But not necessarily memoir.
High exposition comes kind of from.
Right.
It kind of comes from this French writer named Montaigne, who wrote a series of essays on subjects that didn't really have an answer. They considered it kind of like high exposition, but it was on subjects that were kind of more ethereal, I guess. Like he would write essays on friendship,
my perception,
on suffering,
my ideas
on
about
sadness,
memoir has actually broadened.
Those subjects that were more
after
philosophical.
To these different writers
so a lot of that
it.
comes from.
I think I've always had trouble with trying to approach.
Not necessarily memoir, but
memoir.
a lot of elements.
I don't know how to write about.
Kind of come from
my life
from
without
that.
turning it into fiction.
And
I guess I worry.
What I like about
too,
memoir is
like,
that you can.
What will people
you
say?
can mix up
or
the
if
genre.
they disagree,
you can
like
be lyrical,
could I get sued
you can
for
add
libel
poetry.
if
You
they
can
disagree with
it's
what
kind
I
of like a
say
wider
happened.
playing field.
Those are real concerns, right? Yeah. I think it takes courage, but I wonder too. Like for myself, I've found that it's been a little difficult to do.
Yeah, I mean those are. Yeah, I mean that's something that Nancy Sloan had talked about.
For work, I used to work on the orchards, and this is a poem about that. It's entitled Diaspora Sonnet in Eastern Oregon, Late Fall. What was it like? Snowfall and hands in pockets, oil drums stuffed to the rim with twigs. Under sleeping pallets, the crushed apples insistent rot, and the work as plain as God. We lived and we died. And when we died, there was the promise of apples to clean, to polish, astringent soaps rubbed on bodies to wring out the fact of the cumin-like smell of what? Of labor, cider and grease, the hard pits of warehouse funk, stink of mattress, stack after stack, the forever cold of Freon, and the drone of fan belt hum. Our mattress springs idled in the maw of the coolest places where the red delicious peered over the edges of freight. And we saw our fruits, forever in the twilight at shift's end, stared them down hard until the red ran green.
Ferryville. Driving along the upper Mississippi, jagged bluffs jutting, thick trees and lemony stone, I'm reciting a poem carried from childhood 1,000 miles east on a different river. This is our lordly Hudson hardly flowing under the green-grown cliffs. I pass Ferryville, where flatboats once traveled back and forth and horse teams pulled sledges across the ice. Lost world of my own past, lost world of history, both ferried out of sight. My parents dead now. What does it mean to think of them across? And my whole life unmoored in transfer. The river tropes itself, incision winding down into the heartland. Held by locks and dams, it pools and widens. Metaphor, another ferry I can't stop boarding, as if it fixed things, as if it could tell me where I am. Heading west now, I see a bridge arc upward to span the channel to another state. One more green hillside rising, high white houses shimmering in the dust.
So I'll be reading Clown Shoes from Grit, and it's a persona poem in the voice of the shoes. Clown Shoes. You should have seen that gal when she tried us on at the dealer's table, waving her arms like a windmill, tripping over our laces, falling forward. She soon steadied, strode with a loping gait, our flopping toe boxes a world of rainbows and crayoned hearts that delighted children. With each goofy step, her real heart cracked open, inch by inch, wearing her out, us too. She was buried in her clown costume, barefoot. We still live in her walk-in closet.
Chips flick away, tiny pieces falling, lost in the splash of water filling the sink. A crack not a hair's width snakes through the facade underneath makeup precisely applied. Steam hisses from microscopic fissures opening in the carefully crafted life that has all the trimmings, but is now in extra innings and things don't look so rosy for the home team. Solid ice blocks vital veins, and cream sinks to the bottom instead of rising to the top, held down by dreams left to rot on the cutting room floor. Don't text her anymore, or try to reach her by phone. She's breaking up. She's breaking up.
I fall in love with words, not people. Show me your truth when you're most vulnerable. Whisper to me what truly flows from mind to mouth. I fall in love with words, not people. I long to see the figure one is shown as through their phrases. Drown me in your most consistent dialogue. Present a ballet of syllables, watch them dance to a delightful symphony. I fall in love with words, not people, so let my own express the love I found for you.
The prologue is very short, but this was something that's kind of close to my heart, because the prologue is something that other crime writers say you should avoid like the plague. I know Elmore Leonard has famously said you should never put a prologue in a book of crime fiction. But my editor, Juliet Connolly, who's probably edited her last book, which happened to be this one, told me that I should have a prologue back in my first book, Kona Wins, and then she asked me for one for Red Dirt. So without her prompting or asking me, I put one into Char-Shu. And hopefully it gives, the prologue here gives you a flavor of what the book is supposed to be about. Char-Shu is set in 1954 in Honolulu, territorial Hawaii. Okay, so here's the prologue. And I'm going to do this in what I call detective monotone, so forgive the droning, but this is what it should sound like, right? Okay, so here we go. Prologue from Char-Shu. Absolution, forgiveness' big brother. A pain in the ass to seek, a pain in the ass to find. Sooner or later, everybody needs it because everybody screws up. If you think that this doesn't apply to you, you either live in deep denial or need to get thee to a nunnery pronto. The problem with most people seeking absolution is that they bark up all the wrong trees. God, ex-wives, the brand new shiny Internal Revenue Service, any and everyone they victimize by their selfishness, avarice, or poor judgment. Others can forgive, but in the end can't absolve. Absolution comes from within. It's a hell of a thing to absolve yourself when your soul is weighed down by a badge and a 38. There are no black hats and white hats in the real world. There are only gray hats with brims stained yellow by nicotine and cold sweat. My world is an Elysian throw rug of pretty colors covering a minefield of false hopes and ulterior motives. Honolulu, territory of Hawaii. Cops don't bring home the bacon here, we bring home the Char-Shu. Sticky, sweet, fragrant pork to make the bland starch of existence palatable enough to swallow. The most addictive vice of all, free money. At first, you convince yourself that extorting the extorters is not only acceptable, it's righteous. That taking crooks' money keeps them in line, and that you deserve what you take as a reward for pruning the racketeering hedge so it doesn't grow out of control. It's fine, isn't it? After all, it's nobody's money. Nobody's when you shook it out of some dissolute gambler's pocket, but it used to be somebody's. A bride's dowry from the old country, some mom and pop's life savings. It used to be a dream house or some kid's college tuition, but human weakness brought into some den of iniquity and placed it in your hot little hand. Char-Shu can pay for a lot of bills, but it moves absolution further out of your reach. The more you take, the more distant it gets, until you have to put your life on the line to close the gap. For you, most wicked sir, whom to call brother would even infect my mouth, I do forgive thy rankest fault. My rankest fault I will absolve at the business end of a Colt automatic.
So I'm going to read an excerpt from the Tudor House of Horrors chapter. The final straw came the night the devil pulled into the gravel driveway like a bat out of hell. We heard the key click open the back door and his footsteps as he entered the house. There was no time to run. The girls were in the bathroom washing their feet. Kelly was sitting on the sink with her feet in it, and Lisa was standing in the sink with one foot in it. Dan came immediately into the bathroom looking for trouble. He was drunk. He began teasing the girls, and neither one was in the mood. Lisa was able to escape the bathroom. She was slick, but Kelly was trapped in there with him. I went into the bathroom to free Kelly. Kelly was mad and talking back, and that's something you never do and get away with. I had to get the girls away from him or something bad was going to happen. The girls managed to leave the bathroom, and Dan cornered them in the den, grabbing both of them by the throat and squeezing hard. Shortly, they were turning blue, and I knew they were in mortal trouble. I had to get them away, so I intervened from behind. I don't remember exactly how, but he dropped his hold on them. He broke glass on the floor, seeing that they were barefoot, to slow them down and resume the torture. I yelled, "Run downstairs." They knew what I meant, to our downstairs tenant, Rosalie, who was our intermittent protector. We all ran down to her apartment in the basement and locked ourselves in. Dan came down banging on the door, but we never opened it. He wouldn't stop until I agreed to come out. I left the girls in Rosalie's care for the rest of the night. What happened when I went upstairs with Dan? I have no memory of what took place and had to rely on my daughter Lisa's memory, who was 9. She was 9 years old at the time, to fill in the detail.
My first chapter is entitled, I Will Never Be as Brave as My Mother. It was around midnight then, and my kitchen and dining room were filled with the aroma of freshly baked sweetbread. I don't recall why I was baking at such a late hour, only that I had just carefully laid out a dozen fluffy buns on the dining table and was sprinkling grated queso de bola over them when the telephone rang. The sound was jarring in the quiet of the night. I wanted to let the machine take the message, but a gut feeling told me it was important. Nobody calls at such an hour unless something has happened, I thought to myself. Still, I hesitated to interrupt my baking ritual. Besides, my hands were greasy from handling the buttery rolls. But the shrill ringing was insistent. Finally, the answering machine kicked in, and an elderly male voice came over the speaker as the caller began to leave a message. Hello, my name is Robert Dow. I want to make sure I have the correct number. Are you the daughter of Lulu Reyes? If you are, I am calling to thank your mother. I nearly slipped on the kitchen floor as I dashed to pick up the phone, grabbing the handset from the wall with butter-slicked fingers. Hello, I said out of breath but relieved. I caught the caller. This is Betty Ann. Yes, I am the daughter of Lulu Reyes Besa. The voice on the other end of the line, no longer amplified by a machine, was softer and tinged with an emotion I did not yet understand. Are you Lulu's daughter? She saved my life, he announced unexpectedly. I have been searching for your mother for over 50 years. With a wireless handset gripped in one hand, I reached with the other into the nearby drawer for a pen and a notepad, and then sat down at the kitchen table. I found you through your mother's good friend, Nini Quezon, he explained, pronouncing the surname Quezon. I'm Robert Dow. You can call me Bob. My mother had never spoken of anyone named Robert Dow, but at the mention of my godmother, Nini Quezon Abansenia, one of her dearest longtime friends, I felt reassured this call was not some kind of prank. Your mother saved my life when I was a POW, he repeated, and I could hear a tremor of emotion in his voice. Because of her, I have had a wonderful life. He spoke slowly, but I still scribbled quickly, eager to capture each word, as he began to talk about the woman I thought I knew as well as I knew myself. More than 50 years ago, Bob was Corporal Robert J. Dow, one of thousands of American prisoners of war in Japanese-occupied Philippines during World War II. Like many of his fellow captured soldiers, Bob suffered miserably through inhumane conditions inside Japanese POW camps and might have succumbed to the ordeal if it were not for my mother. Do you even know the dangers she went through to save our lives? She saved so many American soldiers. I was astounded by what I was hearing. My parents were married several years after World War II ended, and they led very quiet lives in the province of Tarlac, where I was raised. They rarely talked to me and my younger sister, Isabel, about the gut-wrenching atrocities my mother witnessed in Manila throughout the war. I knew Mom as a loving and nurturing person, but she had never before mentioned the American and Filipino soldiers she apparently saved. The revelations during my phone call with Bob on that night in 1999 were mind-blowing. It took me days, no, years, to fully process.
Well, you were saying, like fiction, you're writing your memoir and it would be like writing fiction. Well, the same elements do, apply. I mean, if you write a memoir, conversely, if you're writing fiction, there's a conflict.
Right.
In a memoir, there's a conflict.
Right.
I mean, those are the same elements. They apply, right? So
or they should apply if you want your memoir to be interesting too. It's like because you don't want to just say, well, like this happened and then that happened and then that happened.
Well, and then that would be a biography, right, or an autobiography, where you go like beginning, middle, and end. You're born. You do stuff. It's all encompassing, right? But with a memoir, you're kind of taking a slice, of something, and you're looking at it through a particular lens. So it's not everything, but you're taking a slice that is really significant, a significant part of your life or somebody's life.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the holiday season is also the season of colds and flu. And I was going to interview today Catherine Jewell, the author of the book about college radio, but she fell to the flu. So that's something that's going to have to wait until the new year. And but you're doing an interview as well that people can look forward to in the new year. That looks pretty interesting to me.
Jennifer or Jen Soriano, who lived in the Bay Area. Now she lives I believe she lives in Seattle, Washington. I'm reading her. It's a book of essays called Nervous. Mm-hmm. It's about trauma. It's about the body and how it reacts to trauma and how these things are connected with our memory and generational trauma. And so it's been a pretty good read so far, so I'm very, very much looking forward to interviewing her. Well, one of the challenges that I have when I'm reading something and I know that I have to interview the person is, I'm always kind of sweating because I'm thinking, well, God, I need to ask good questions. I don't want to, ask questions that, are just kind of trite. So, you want to be engaging, but at the same time, you want to be entertaining as well because you don't want to, turn off the listener, right?
Right.
So I'm always trying to throw, ask something that maybe nobody else has asked, or come from a different angle.
That's interesting. I've always felt like if I read the person's book or read at least a good portion of it, that the conversation kind of flows. And sometimes I have to remind myself that it's not me that people are really trying to hear. It's the author that I'm presenting who they want to hear. So if I can just get them started talking about their book, and usually they have a fire that got lit that made them write the book. So if I can try to, blow a little bit of, blow a little air.
The Bluest Eye with Toni Morrison.
Once it's heard, it can't be unheard. Once it's published, it's not going to be unpublished. Once you read the poem, you can't unread it. No matter how an individual may try to push it to the side, forget about it, it's still in there. And it's the words, the meaning, the feelings behind it are taking root in their psyche, and they can't get rid of it.
This book is gay. By Juno Dawson.
Yeah, I read all banned books, so if you ban a book, I'm buying it. So you're working against your goal, and why would you do that anyway?
Yeah, I think you should just get a list of the banned books and read them. I think they're promoting the books, and you need to get a copy of it. I mean, if we're going to silence voices, how will we ever know truth?
This one is out Ghent Lake, and most recently published in Cosmic Horror Monthly, July of last year. It's no wonder how some things stay hidden in this world. People don't believe in Mothman or Bigfoot because they think if they really existed, someone would have exposed them by now. That modern times would shine a light on anything like that, and every person on the planet would know about it in hours, thanks to the internet. They even got a name for them: cryptids. It means creatures whose existence is unproven. But if you look at where the word came from, the Greek, it just means hidden, a hidden creature. I realize that what lives in Ghent Lake will never take over the world. It's not even going to take over tiny little Rexton 10 miles away. That's because whatever's under that black water is patient. It doesn't care if people believe in it. But those few who do, mostly the old-timers, they think there's only one of them. But I know different, because Daddy killed one, and, well, what happened after meant there was more than one to begin with.
The day she left. The instant he steps from the car's cool interior into the August heat, his glasses fog over. He walks to the house trusting memory and baby steps. Hands scanning the air like antennae, he avoids the ugly metal pig she insisted was adorable, misses the concrete bench that came with the house, steps over the bulging root of the maple tree and the broken paver he meant to replace. He gropes his way up the 3 porch steps to the door, feels the key into the lock, and enters the house, smiling and turning his head as if waiting for someone to come and hear what he had done. The gray clouds still floating before his eyes.
So we stand at this time, at this moment in this history, and we continue on a struggle that our ancestors who have come before have fought for. Whose land? Whose land? Your voice will not be
The last 6 months, I've been traveling to speak with people who are at the front lines of this regenerative economy movement. Founders and builders, philanthropists and nonprofit leaders, farmers and land defenders, researchers and filmmakers, and especially those who are working at the convergence of where crypto meets
It doesn't
climate.
matter almost in this day and age how much information you throw at people if you don't get at like the essence or the feeling or the connectivity it has to their human experience.
Economy means the management of home. Home as in our households, our work, our community, even our planet.
I want to invite all of your listeners, and I try to invite my readers into this idea that actually we are all engaged in agriculture. If you are an eater,
yes,
eating is an agricultural act, and that was actually understanding that was what led to this
group
list.
Of people who called themselves conservatives, although they were identified at the time as being radicals because they're trying to tear apart this system that has produced a concentration of wealth in the sense that there's a compression between the people at the bottom and the people at the top, so that a CEO in those days, for example, of Ford makes about 8 times what a worker does. Now it's over 340 times.
You bring in some of the spiritual aspects of doing this work and some of the deep ancestral aspects of doing this work that I think are really seen as like outside of science, and we need more blending of that with science.
Earlier, when recognizing the amnesia that many of us carry as to who we truly are and what this world truly is, my heart cries out, and I really want to bring memory. I want to bring remembrance for such souls, that they may see themselves in a divine and sacred light. And
once Katrina hit, there was a big thing to protect New Orleans, and New Orleans will always be protected, right? So they built a wall around the city.
This is Listen and Be Heard Radio, WLBH.org. My name is Martha Senator. The show is Listen and Be Heard. So the writers that you've heard from so far have been Oliver de la Paz. The book is Diaspora Sonnets. Anne Miles from Late Epistle. Karen Luke Jackson reading from Grit. David Cameron and Tabitha were poets at an open mic in Hendersonville, North Carolina. Scott Kikawa read from Char Sue. Nancy Sloan from The Gravel Driveway. Betty Ann Quirino, Every Ounce of Courage. Darren Todd read from The Ugly Mug. Eric Nelson from Horse Not Zebra, and Christian Lozada from He's a Color Until He's Not. Writers reading from their books, and we're going to hear some more of our guests that we had, and a little more conversation between me, Martha Senator, and Tony Robles. And I hope that you're relaxing in this nether time of the end of the year, the beginning of a new one. Listening, being heard, living, laughing, digging in the garden, piling up that compost.
When the invasive becomes domestic. So starved of home on my tongue, I'm reading a poem about the death of Filipina domestic workers who will be buried in foreign soil. And I perk up at the words Cebu and Cebuano and say other Filipino phrases out loud, hoping my mouth finds them familiar one day. I knew the anxiety of metal to metal tapping on room number plates with housekeeping keys before entering the unknown. First, I knew to use a towel to prop the door open for plausible deniability if something goes missing or so passersby can hear me call. Second, I knew no matter the situation, say sorry if the occupant is in the room. Third, I knew to go about my business, pretend the occupant isn't there, but listen for their words, listen for their movements. Fourth, coil exhausted muscles just in case, but I never reminded myself I am a man, and I never thought about these brown aunties and what it meant for them to go tapping on occupied doors and the messes they were expected to clean. I never knew to listen for an auntie's call and wouldn't know the Cebuano word for help if I heard it.
This poem is the first poem that I memorized to become a spoken word poet, and it's entitled, I Am a Poet. I am a poet. I turn words into sun rays. I engrave page after 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 page with rhythmical rage. You see, once I engage, the page becomes my stage to wage wars with syllables, consonants, and vowels. Syllables, consonants, and vowels. Syllables, consonants, and vowels. I howl in the thick of the night to conjure my poetical might. Each word written transforms into light. I am a poet. I dive deep into the infinite world of diction to bring forth image and vision. I'm a scientist who's always in the lab performing experiments with vocab. I am a poet, a prophet of verb, creating logic with words. I must write and recite 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 and recite. I cannot resist the urge. I am a poet.
Viva la Viva. I used to be the picture of a family man. I used to have insurance and the family plan. I used to be a fixture for the family man. I used to have endurance for the family plan. Viva la 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 la. Viva la 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 la. Viva la 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 la. Viva la 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 la. I used to have a garden with a place in the sun. I used to have a shoulder I could lay my head on. I used to be the model of a bodily soul. I used to hide a bottle in the watering hole. Viva la 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 la. Viva la 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 la. Viva la 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 la. Viva la 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 la. I used to be the leader of a nation of woe. I used to push a button and the missile would go. I used to blow the whistle on the fizzle below. I used to put the sugar in the cappuccino. My people suffer more than yours do. 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 Viva la 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 la. Viva la 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 la. Viva la 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 la. Viva la 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 la. I used to have a limo but they took it away. I used to have a pillow but they took it away. I used to have a baby but they took it away. I used to have a maybe but they took it away. I used to watch the enemy before it was me. I used to watch the battle be the battle I see. I used to watch theology be all you can be. I used to watch reality before a TV. When people suffer, they go da-da-da-dum. 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 I used to beat around the bush and call it a day. I used to peter out about a third of the way. I used to pay attention to the mention of news. I used to have what used to be addiction to you. Viva la 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 la. Viva la 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 la. Viva la 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 la. Viva la 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 la. I used to be the color of the people I know. I used to be the lover of the people I know. I used to be the brother of the people I know. I used to be the other of the people I know. I bet a better booty's gonna better the flow. I beat a better booty with a bubble of blow. I better let a booty be the Buddha below. A Buddha better beat it if he doesn't belong. I used to suffer but I don't. I used to suffer but I don't. I used to suffer, but I don't. I used to suffer, but I don't. You ever get a feeling life is passing you by? You ever get a feeling you could never describe? You ever get a feeling you were never alive? You ever get a feeling I could take you alive? I used to be much thinner when a thinner was fun. I used to be the winner when a winner was fun. I used to be the sinner when a sinner was fun. I used to have fun, now I'm holding a gun. Some people suffering, up, pow. 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 Viva la 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 la. Viva la 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 la. Viva la 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 la. Viva la 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 la.
In a box on a street where two alleys meet lived a cat who just loved to sing. And each night around 9, her friends formed a line to hear Jazzy Zazzy sing swing. The crowds cheered for the cat who'd croon and who'd scat. Oh, that sound, a glorious thing. Reeby-de-doo-da-da, reeby-de-doo-da-dee, reeby-de-doo-da-da, da-de-doo-da-dee. A little cat scat.
The earth sounds like a choir in the cathedral of these woods. Walking over an exposed root, a single ant creates a racket, its step drowning out even the cry of crow. And crescendo of burrowing beetle and bulldozer, dissonant as a mustard seed. What of the language of the tentative tendril? A language of fluidity, of flirtation, of tenderness, of necessity, of thirst, of lust, of luck, lurking, lunging, lounging, luxurious. A language of kindness, of extending, of grasping and release, of relief, of grief or grievances, of vigilance and reckless calamity. Underground language is a caution tape, a vibrant ribbon of alert, alarm, watchful woven, warp and weft, tendril and touch, embedded beneath toes and hoof. Tread lightly. We listen with meandering probes for a dialect of dust, jargon at the jugular, lingo for the living. We root for the rhizome, transmitter of messages. Hermes, disguised as fungi, invents speech, moves between worlds, translates the languages of sun to soil. What is time among the tendrils? Boss time, moon time, worm time, worry time, tangled, tensile time. Do we dare listen? For a whisper, a secret, a kiss, a language among tendrils. Underland, a language of touch, sensing fingers reach for each other, wrap around tendril to tip. Language as caress, wisp and will. Two trees, decades old, find each other in the underland, companions, protectors, share what they know, share what they are. When rooted, we are connected to each species, ancestral and future. The Underland is where we store our stories, safekeep memories, cocoon our dead, absorb light, birth the new. Ears to ground, eyes to sky, we are briefly in the midst of it all, listening through our skins. Sat on soil, probe in hand, taking the pulse of roots, transcribing, translating, imagining. Black walnut cling to the edge of stream by the studio, their language is solid, territorial. Maple dangled their tangle of root in air where a river once ran. Theirs a language of thirst, of longing. Moss has grown on ancient boulders since I've lived near their majesties. Miniature forests within the forest surprise us with their sing-song beat, their optimism. This is sound among the tendril, even the tree stump. It's a lot to say. Ear to woods, eyes to sky, we are in free fall. Parachute barely cushions the blow. As we dare listen for a whisper, a secret, a kiss, a language among the tendril.
That was the voice of Suzy Sureck, and that was from her multimedia project, Tread Lightly. And before Suzy, you heard Fiely Matias doing a little performance from his children's book, Rebee Deedo Dada. And Edwin Torres, his book, Quirino-Every. And before that was Christopher D. Sims, a poet who appeared also in Hendersonville, North Carolina. And before him was Christian Lozada. He's a color until he's not. And if you would like to get in touch with Listen and Be Heard, if you would like to contribute, volunteer, help get things off the ground, reviews, interviews, feedback. editor@listenandbeheard.net is the email address. editor@listenandbeheard.net. You can go to WLBH.org for Listen and Be Heard streaming radio. As always, I want to thank Davine Dial, the station manager at WPVM in Asheville, North Carolina, for introducing Listen and Be Heard to the Pacifica Network. Thank you to DJ Jeannie Hopper and Jay Rodriguez Sierra, both for everything they've contributed to Season 1 of Listen and Be Heard. And to Tony Robles, of course, my co-host. And most of all, thank you to our listeners for listening and allowing me to be heard. I'll be back here in a couple of weeks with the final part 3 of writers reading their work from Season 1. And after that, it will be Season 2 of Listen and Be Heard. Thank you so much.
So you're kind of working on that throughout the program.
And so were you keeping a job this whole time?
Yeah, I was working at Goodwill.
Uh-huh.
I guess I was working 25 hours a week at Goodwill.
So not a full-time job?
No, I couldn't
Yeah.
I think at the most I was doing 30 hours at Goodwill.
Okay, so for folks listening, that gives you a little slice of like an older person's journey to getting an MFA while they're still living their life. And
but you know, it was, we had, you know, your creative thesis is really, you know, it could be a collection of poetry, it could be a novel or part of a novel, or it could be a collection of short stories. And then your critical, that's your creative thesis. Your critical thesis is on some kind of, you know, aspect of the craft.
And I think a lot of people probably go for their MFA with a particular project in mind, like you wanted to get this novel done, you'd already started it.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of people are in that position where they feel like, oh, if I could workshop this through my MFA, I probably have some come out of there with something.
Exactly. So you had people, I knew folks that, you know, did a collection of poetry, or they did a collection of short stories. You know, my critical thesis actually was on the parallels. It was called Crafting the Punchline. It was called Crafting the Punchline, the parallels between boxing and writing, because there are some very real similarities between pugilism and writing, believe it or not. There's some very
I suppose so.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It's absolutely, because you know, you have, well, like in fiction, you have desire and resistance, right?
I have to confess
that
when it came to your conversation with Ron Rash, and I wanted to hear about his book, and you all talked sports, and mostly I had no idea. No idea what you were talking about.
Well, the thing is, you know, writing is endurance.
Yeah.
Okay. He was a long distance track guy.
Yeah, I remember.
That's endurance.
I remember. Yeah.
That's endurance.
Yes.
You know, fighting a 15-round fight is endurance. So you know, it's like in fiction, you have desire and resistance, right? So you have something to overcome, right? Your characters have to overcome something.
See, I'm more apt to compare it to like fixing a meal or working in the garden, you know. But I'll accept the sports analogy. I accept it. I don't feel it in my gut.
Well, I thought it was interesting because everybody looks at Ron Rash as being the writer.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that he ran long distance track. I mean nobody knows that.
What is it that nobody knows about Tony Robles, the people's poet?
That I never ran. I never ran track.
Okay. Well, I feel like I've learned a lot about you too in this last year, Tony, and I want to thank you for being my co-host for season 1 of Listen and Be Heard.
Oh, this is great.
But
I mean, like I said, 38 shows. I mean, I can't believe it.
And all the people that you've brought through, and you know, I want to thank all of our guests too, all of my guests, all of your guests for having participated in the conversation, and I'm really looking forward to continuing the conversation in season 2, to listening and being heard, and even bringing more of it as we venture into 24/7 streaming Listen and Be Heard radio at WLBH.org.
Well, it's been a lot of fun, and I just feel like, I'm interviewing folks, but I also feel like kind of a roving reporter as well. I just kind of like putting a mic in somebody's face and asking them questions. I just like it, I always have.
I could tell that you like it, and I enjoy being on the receiving end of that, and I'm looking forward to when we can actually do that live over streaming radio. That's going to be a lot of fun. So we have a lot to look forward to, and I want to wish you happy holidays and a happy new year, and I'm looking forward to season 2, Tony.
Oh, for sure. Me as well.
Okay, so
all right.
I'll see you then.
All right. I'll see you then too.
All right. Thank you.
All right. All right.
Living it, giving it, having it, taking it, moving it, shaking it, creating it, loving it, living it.